Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about the value of paying attention. I don't want this to come off as a lecture, but I want to focus on how listening and being aware has a direct benefit on us. So to start, we're going to talk about the idea of time. I know it may sound a little unrelated, but you'll see how we get the ball rolling. I'm sure at some point any one of us has heard about how the idea of time is an illusion. We're not going to dive too much into that, just scratch the surface and then move on. But suffice to say, that notion is basically that the past and the future are the illusion. All that truly exists is this moment. It's an interesting topic, and if you want to know more, Eckhart Tolle is a really good source to go to about this, and we'll discuss it more in later videos as well. So with this idea in mind that all there really is this moment, then what exactly is time if past and future don't really fall in there? So one very useful way that we use to describe time is change. The way that we describe time on our planet is through the cyclical changes of the Earth orbiting the sun spinning, the moon orbiting the Earth, and so on. These regular cyclical periods of change is how we measure time. So putting these factors together, we can see that time is really just this moment in a constant state of change. And even though some things appear unchanging, it's just because they're changing really slowly relative to us, right? There are so many things around us that appear to not be in a state of change. They seem static and unmoving and unwavering. It's just because they're changing over longer periods of time. This rule of constant change applies to everything, just we're not always very aware of it. Right now, we're all changing and moving through space and time, and so is everything along with us. And we can look at these big, long-scale times that appear unchanging, and we can look all the way down to the smallest scales of time, to microseconds, and all the way down to the Planck scale. The point is that changes are happening every moment, from the largest all the way down to the smallest scales in everything. So why is that useful? Well, it's useful, again, because this is the universe that we live in, okay? It's an inescapable way of how the universe functions. And every single moment is different by whatever degree. And so because every single moment is changing, then we always have an opportunity to learn from what's going on around us. We all do this passively to survive, whether we're aware of it or not. And the really important stuff tends to get hardwired in our brains. So for example, we are all built with this fight or flight response. We all have these subconscious habits and other such programmed ways of experiencing life, which is obviously very useful, especially for survival and safety. But it's also well known in psychology how these systems can become limiting and detrimental. For example, the first time you put your hand to a flame, you got burned. You learned that fire is hot, so that not to touch it or it's going to burn you. But if we extrapolate this idea to a more complex social scenario, we can see how it doesn't serve us so well anymore. Let's say you're an adolescent and you're a guy, there's this girl that you like, and you finally muster the courage, you fight all this fear and self-doubt inside of you, and you muster the courage to go and talk to the girl and ask her out. And unfortunately for you, she isn't very nice about it. Or she just shoots you down, or she ignores you or neglects, or maybe she makes fun of you or spreads rumors. Maybe she's nice about it and just lets you down and says no. Regardless, the outcome is the same. You faced rejection and humiliation, which is obviously an unpleasant experience, not so dissimilar to burning your hand on the flame. Only now the hardwiring in your brain is wrong to assume that every time that you go and talk to someone that they're gonna make you feel this way. So the point I'm making here is that our subconscious passive learning mind isn't really adept for handling these more complex life situations. Engaging our higher thinking minds and paying attention and listening and learning from these situations is a much more beneficial way to handle this. And these problems will present themselves in many ways, in many forms, many times before we start to learn from them and eventually master them. So it basically breaks down to this idea of, do you want to be this passive observer in your life, or do you want to be an active player? And that's why we're talking about paying attention and listening, and how doing this can help us handle these situations better. Every moment we're being given new information. We're constantly being fed this stream of data from our world, whether it's visual or audible or experiential or emotional, in the form of thoughts. In whatever way, it's a very multifaceted, complex way of experiencing, but it's constantly changing, it's constantly being fed to us every moment. We're constantly experiencing our reality this way. So let's look at a couple of practical examples and see how we can apply this. So let's look at this idea that everyone knows about, and it's the idea of 2 and 2 making 4, right? Bear with me. I want to point out that no one invented this, right? There's no magical mathematician that came along someday and said 2 and 2 makes 4. right? He didn't just invent that. Math and so many other things in our reality, it's not so much about us coming up with these solutions, but more about us just listening and the solutions being given to us. We're not looking at the words here, 2 and 2 and 4. We're looking at the idea. We all know that if you take 2 here and 2 there and you put them together, you have 4. And it doesn't matter what side of the universe you're on, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what time, it's always going to be true. It's universal truth. It's always going to be this way. Now I know this is really simple and seemingly arbitrary idea, but it's to demonstrate how we can take the simplest and smallest of things, and we can also look at the largest and most complex things and see how this applies. So let's say that you've been having some medical problems. You go to the doctor, and after they do some testing, they come back and tell you that you have cancer. I know you're wondering, like, how are these two things going to be possibly related? Well, it's because you didn't just get cancer. It's not like one day you didn't have cancer and then the next day, boom, all of a sudden you had cancer. There are likely many factors that led to you being diagnosed with this illness. Be it your diet, or your smoking, or your exposure to carcinogens, or an unhealthy lifestyle, thoughts, stressful or negative thinking, destructive life habits, whatever it is, it's probably a combination of these factors that contributed to you developing cancer. But the point here is, if you listen, your body is telling you something is clearly wrong. The idea here isn't to propose a cure for all life's ailments and illnesses. It's to look at these situations and realize that if we listen to them, we can learn from them. If you have a cough, your body is telling you that you need to breathe. If you're obese, you're probably putting too much food or the wrong types of food in your body. If your job is killing you, maybe it's time for you to find a new way of making a living. Let's say you're in an unhealthy relationship, it's clearly telling you that you need to get out of that situation. Whatever illness or problem in your life, you need to look at these factors and listen to them and see how they're showing you. They're showing you how something in your life isn't in harmony, and you need to listen to that so that you can benefit. And many of us have these unhealthy habits and lifestyles that give us our problems, and we're so used to them and so conditioned that we are usually completely unaware of them. So if we stop and take a moment and just listen, then we can see how these problems are being created for us and how the problems are showing us the solutions. One final point I want to make here is the idea of thoughts, speech, and actions. This is something we're going to talk about a lot more in many other videos, but for now let's just lay the foundation that this is very much integral to how we experience reality. Everything follows this process from thought to speech to action. And if we pay attention to this process and take what we've learned, we can apply it to make a better experience for ourselves. So pay attention to your thoughts and your words and your actions. Just sit with them sometimes and be honest with yourself. Do you have negative thoughts about yourself or others? Are you doubtful? Are you self-conscious? Do you have limiting beliefs? Do you have distracting habits? Are you closed-minded? Do you often slip and say bad things about yourself or others? Do you find yourself being bored or complacent or lazy, not pushing yourself out of your comfort zone or trying new things, or just simply focusing your efforts in a positive way? Are you merely a passive victim to life and circumstance, not listening and learning and expanding your awareness and knowledge? Every moment we have something to work with, but if we're stuck in judging it or fighting it or resisting or hell-bent on our ideas, it doesn't matter how much you want 2 and 2 to make 5, it's never going to happen. You need to learn that this is how things work, and then you can use that, and now you're working in harmony with the universe. And it can be really difficult, but don't give in to this wrong lower mind that thinks that just because you had 1 or 2 bad experiences with one person, that all people suck, that all men are bad, that all women are bad, that all Republicans suck. Whatever it is, get yourself out of these narrow ways of thinking, or any of these radical one-sided views of saying things. See the bigger picture and realize that whatever bad experiences you've had, it doesn't mean that you're not worthy of love or respect or compassion or connection. And pay attention and have great humility when you are doing this. Realize that you have so much learning and growing to do, and embrace it. We can learn from something every moment of every day. Literally every moment is a new opportunity to learn and grow. I know this one jumped around a lot, guys. Remember, these ideas are together painting a bigger picture, and this is one simple idea of paying attention in a very vast and complex universe, a very vast and complex person. But I hope you can take this and it will help you in your life and your situations. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please feel free to subscribe. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.